Hello everybody and welcome back to another On the Workbench session. I think this is episode 30, not that anybody's counting. Now this is sort of a challenge right here. And I'm even gonna make this reference picture here, and it's a grainy one. And there's a lot of distractions, all kinds of weird stuff going on in the background. But I've got to translate this color scheme to this guy over here. And I'm not gonna be using metallics because to keep things consistent, they want it to be non-metallic. And I was gonna bring up the what would you say, the box art color scheme for these guys, because that's actually more of a bluish green. But here you can see you got something looks almost like brass or bronze or whatever, and then you've got the red and the blue. We'll see just how we can translate that, and then you see the horses are all. I mean, everything's pretty dark there. Horses are dark, cloaks are dark. Looks like the cloaks actually have a little bit of a greenish, dark forest green to them, maybe. And we're going to try and translate that to this guy over here. Now, what we're going to use, unlike the Dark Sword episode, that was ProAcryl Transparent and the Reaper lighter colors, we are going to use these guys. You've seen these before. Contrast paints right here. The usuals. We'll see if we use the purple and the red. There will be some other things that sneak in, because if I need to do something that's more of a dark green, I might throw either the contrast yellow in, or maybe that Cassandra yellow right there. But just like we did with our previous one, we're going to try these two guys here, mixing them with our contrast paints, obviously to make those sort of semi-translucent washes and stuff. And then that's going to be our initial glaze and our shaded base coat. We'll see what we can do here. Again, it's going to be one of those things where I develop the color scheme on the fly here, and I thought that could be valuable for you guys to see. Because dark green here. That's going to be just sort of a. Now I want to get a little more separation, I think, with the horse and the cloak than maybe there was in the images that you see. What we're going to do is we're going to get that paint out on the palette, and we'll go right back to this guy. Let's get started here with those initial glazes. So we're going to grab ourselves just one of our usual craft brushes right here, the number 8 rounds. Actually, I'm going to start off with a little bit of the snakebite leather. I'm going to mix that. I'm going to grab some of that. There we go. Make that a little bit more. Sounds like a little bit of a brown there. Let's take a little more. Yeah, maybe grab some of the contrast medium here. Let's just throw this over some of these metal parts real quick here. And the idea is here, what is that on his chest? I can't tell if that's a fish or something. I have no idea what the heck that is. We'll find out together, I suppose. So we're just gonna do a little bit of. It seems weird to be doing this lighter stuff first instead of the red around it, but actually it's going to help a little bit. I need to. When I'm searching out a color scheme like this, I actually need to know, is this metal color really going to work with that? Is it going to look too much like gold? It's going to be too bright, too dark. And okay, so that I'm seeing some of this. Well, obviously, if it's supposed to be the whole fish theme here, we're looking at some kind of scale type armor here. Gold on the horse. Here. Well, bronze, brass, can't really tell. So actually, that's also metal too. That is metal too. Where else do we see metal? Will go here. And as always, we're not trying to be super careful here. We're just basically slapping this stuff on. And that's all I needed right there. Just a little bit of a reference. Now, gonna get down to the base. We'll let that sort of dry. So we got our wildwood here. Bunch of that. Here's my Leviathan blue. And mixing these two together, that's really going to be at the heart of what we're going to play with here is trying to make that almost black color. Now, I am thinking about having I'm going to have some of this gore grunt to fur out here too. Where can he go? He's gonna go in here, I think. That's where the purple's gonna go as well. Where are you? So, Gruntifer, our Leviathan blue. Want to have a bunch of different colors out here for this, and it's going to be covered with snow. And as we've talked before, what there's going to be a lot of foliage or snow or flock. I am not going to invest a whole ton of energy into the base when a lot of it's just going to get covered up. And remember, if there's going to be snow going over the top of it, especially with that, we don't want the base to get too light, or this rock. This is the usual tree bark, if you're wondering. You've seen me use this format many times. And so just rapid fire get this in. Now my camera, I have to move this around just a bit because there was a bit of kerfuffle earlier tonight when all the graphics cards on all the machines went into revolt and refused to work. But we didn't know that because each machine was acting in a very extremely different way. So it took hours and hours to figure out that's what it was. And so if there's some things out of place or whatever, or something maybe a little bit different, that is why. I'm hoping that this also resolves some of the crazy things that have been happening with the YouTube lives, where I guess I keep getting bumped off or whatever, which is weird, to say the least. Because it's the same day Kathy's doing her live stream and nothing's happening. Alright, we're just gonna get this darker stuff just to give me the right context there. And guess what? We're gonna be using that darker color on our horse, wildwood, Leviathan blue, blue and brown. Pretty much make black. In we go. And we're just gonna really hit this hard. Now, where I've got the horse, I'm going to try and sneak in a little bit more of the wildwood. You're not going to be able to see a whole bunch of this because you've got this blanket thing going on here. And this is a one-piece miniature, so there's no way to do things separately, like the rider from the horse or whatever. It's all cast in one piece. Here, let's do a touch more of the wildwood. Make that more of a dark brown and less of a bluish black, because we're going to reserve that for the blankets on the horse. Maybe even the interiors. Let's sneak in a little more Leviathan blue here. What the heck? Back into the wildwood again. And it's just going to be, obviously, we're spreading out a whole lot of darker tones here. There's our Leviathan blue mixed with the wildwood once more. let's go on the other side over here. Because remember what we're trying to do. We're just trying to figure out an overall color scheme for these guys. Even the person these are for wasn't real sure, and that's not super helpful sometimes. When they just say, well, yeah, either, well, it's up to you, or what do you think, or, well, yeah, I kind of like that, but yeah, I kind of like this. That's always not the most fun ground to be walking over. Filled with hazards. But sometimes you just do what you gotta do. Back into the wildwood again. And, oh, what the heck, I'm not gonna cover these things up. I'll get the red and blue in there later. Because I just noticed that's what's there. But I don't really care. It is, after all, it's just the shaded base coat phase. Let's see. I might have to wait for the back of the area around the back of the shield to dry before I can hit that with this also. Let's get the spear here, or his lance, sorry. I got Rohan on the brain, so any long pointy thing on a horse just becomes a spear. More Leviathan blue there. Okay, I'm gonna make this picture bigger again to get a little better visualization. I am gonna dive into some Killian green. Touch of that snakebite leather. That's going to give it a little bit more of a greenish look there. Knock the palette around. And I think the golds are, yeah, those are dried up. I'm going to need some Leviathan blue here. That was too much of a warm green. So the Leviathan blue, it's got some purple in it, so, or at least a little more reddishness. Gonna do it even a little more. So I know on camera this probably just looks like a whole patch of darks here, but really there is actual some form and shape being considered here. I'm gonna go right to, not sure if that is also part of the cloak or tunic or whatever, but also have to think, even in this early stage, about reflections, reflected colors, not necessarily reflected light, but yeah, this is a pretty intense color right here, so that's got to be, that needs to be reflected where possible. Just gonna use the figure as a little bit of a palette there. There's plenty of paint sitting on it. Just bring this down here. And we'll go with that. Now, back to, somehow forgot the end of the spear and the sword scabbard. We'll just do that. There. And I'm going to grab me some of this green and just boom, hit that right there. The snakebite leather-ish glaze is still on the wet side, so that works pretty well. I'm going to get little smaller brushes I can sneak into with some of the Gore Grunta here. Just want some vaguely wood type color here behind the shield. Again, you can't see what's going on here. Like I said, this is less about showing a whole figure and the basing and all that sort of stuff, like a Dark Sword episode, like the one we just recently did. This is something where I've got to figure out how is this color scheme going to translate, and it's such a perplexing thing that I thought it just could have some benefits, because I know we've talked about this many times that I try to make this as at least at the least amount of at ease for me as possible, so that for you guys, when you sit down to do yours, it's you start to feel, well, yeah, that's other people have this stuff on their mind too. They have to figure out, okay, I've got this color scheme I'd like to do, but oh, that's not quite the color scheme I'd like. I thought this could just have some useful little tidbits for you guys. But now I'm just trying to shove this brush down in, or at least just to get paint where I need to. So it's going to be kind of rough and violent here. I was originally even thinking about doing these in oils, but then realized that no, I think I also wanted to piggyback this onto the Dark Sword one we did, where we just took the transparent paints. Alright, so that's good to go. Now let's... This is... I'm going to look at this again. There's a weird... So they did something like right here with red, apparently. Okay, didn't know that. Doesn't matter. Not a big deal. I'll just make him smaller again, and... This is the Flash Tears red. I'll start out later. We're actually going to do a secondary one of this. So it goes here. And that, yeah, the only other place I can see it is on the blanket of the horse itself. And on the, right here. Oh, where does it go? It goes, so blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, red there, and then apparently this is also red, which is interesting. I'll just do that. Okay, I've got to move a cord here that was moved, apparently. So, again, just give me a second here to get this out of the way. Now we're going to take some of that Achillean green. Maybe a touch of that Leviathan blue. Maybe another touch of that Leviathan blue. And I think these are the only two places that I see it. I'm gonna bring up the photo again once I get the Achillean in these couple of spots here. So we're doing that sort of negative painting again, where we paint what's not there. I'm gonna bring this up. I'm gonna see what the heck is going on. There's something right there. Oh, okay. So where the clothes are, and I just see a little tiny bit of his arm there. That's apparently also Achillean green. Wherever there is some the Annie over. Well, there is a tiny bit there, and maybe I'll do the inside of the robe this Achillean green, or just add it to that. And okay. Now for the, just slam this here and here. Just more of a reminder than anything else. That's supposed to be that greenish blue color. Alright. Let's start to incorporate some of our lighter tones. And I'm going to go back to the base to let the horse have a chance to sit up. Oh, sorry if I didn't move the picture back. Yeah, it was nothing special. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my bigger brush here. Just dive it right back into our mixes over here. Remember, trying to keep this from getting too light. I also don't want to lose all of the warmth that was sort of left behind here. And it's not a dry brush. We got plenty of paint on this brush. This is still going to be some of the original glaze / wash that's there. I'll incorporate that into what we're doing now. So I'm just going to drag the brush right across the surface here. Just like so. And this is essentially just a dark middle tone right now, not any kind of a light. Got a couple of these skulls here, and we are going to keep those. Yeah, see, this is pretty much a preview of what's going to happen with our brass / bronze color. I don't know why I keep saying bronze, because it's almost a warmer type of a thing. But I'm just not real familiar with brass armor. The brass bands, yes. Brass armor, not so much. And I'm just going to start to give this a few little hints of... Now, let me see, is that his... No, it's not his shoulder pad. So yeah, making the picture big again. No, okay. So even the bracers, those are also going to be... Yeah, I don't want to lose sight of those either. I just really enjoy incorporating. We're really using the color that I was about to put on the base on the ground, and we're putting that on the figure. I love messing around with that. Here we're taking some of that maggot white. We got it mixing in with the Leviathan blue and brown mix. We're just going to try and find ourselves a few little lighter areas here. Again, not going to go super light. No, I just took a quick look thinking, did I make that picture smaller again? So there will come a time where I'm barely even looking at the picture, because you're looking at, I can't even tell if those were metallics or not. The person who sent me the picture couldn't tell. I asked him several times. I said, is that those metallics there? And he really wasn't sure. He pretty much had no idea, so I'm just trying to guess. And the picture was that grainy and that hard to figure out what was on it. So you know what I know. And somehow we've got to figure out the best approach for, how much of that lighter metal tone sticks around. Because the lighter it gets, the more gold it's going to look. And that was the one thing where I said, I don't really want it to be gold. He was okay with the brassy / bronze type look, but gold not so much. Alright, I am going to take some of the maiden flesh now. That's our kind of a pink color right there. I'll find myself a few lighter areas on the armor here. Nothing special yet. We're just working our way towards the middle. Sort of started out in the middle in some places. We worked around kind of to the darker edges of things. Now we're going back towards the middle. But you can see by using things like maiden flesh or the maggot white to lighten something like snakebite leather as opposed to something that's yellow, that helped to tame that beast a little bit, because otherwise that really could have just jumped out at you. Sword hilt and scabbard. Armor again. Horse's armor. And that looks incredibly light. What I just did there, it's not light. It's all in context. And that's why the primer is an important context. Not doing the black primer and just sort of painting things lighter and lighter. Now, what I want to do, we have to do some kind of basically secondary underlighting here, and then we've got to get in on our chainmail, which from what I can see is also, which one of these guys did we grab? It looks like the one, the one on the far corner, furthest away from the camera is the one that I chose. If you're wondering why I chose that one, it's because the spear sticks out, lance sticks out the least, which thus makes it a lot easier to deal with on camera. So if you're wondering why, I can only do one. I had to choose one of them. So I figured, that one's probably going to give you the best view. Now, I took some of the Achillean green. We're going to do a little bit of quick stuff there on the blade, and I might even just throw a little bit of this down onto the rocks here. Not much and not everywhere, just in a few key areas. Who knows, maybe where there's going to be more snow. Sort of make it look like because snow is very translucent after all, and heck, the secret weapon crushed glass snow is what I'll be using on this. We know that's pretty darn transparent. Alright, even this looks dark too. This little fur right here. So we'll keep that more towards the darker side of things. I think these straps here I might go with some kind of almost like a purplish gray. And then, while I've got some of this, there we go. Remember, they're supposed to be that lighter, sort of almost a deep sky blue color. Well, they are now. But I am going to go a bit darker for the shield here. It's very semi-translucent. Now, you can still see some of what's underneath is showing through. But that's already starting to build. Let's see. I'm going to just go with got my green here, and I'm just going to take a little bit of the maiden flesh here. See what that yields for me. Just looking to hit that in some of these shadow areas, and then maybe even I'm going to hit some of the armor with this. It's more of a shadow than reflection. Here, I'm just going to take some water into this, and it's another way to keep it from becoming too warm to gold-like, and that's to reflect this green into it, or use that as a shadow color. So let's play now with our our wildwood over here. I'm gonna get a little bit of violet blue into that. And combination of reinforcing some darks. But I gotta figure out exactly how much warmer I want that horse to be. So let's take a little bit of a chance here. Gonna mix some of the maggot white in with the wildwood. Again, want this horse to stay as dark as possible. That's what I'm seeing in the references. Is that necessarily going to be easy? Not really. And have it have some, there's going to be some kind of distinction from this color. And I almost started putting paint on the horse blanket there. Don't want to do that. Let's make sure we get some of this in here. I'm also going to do with this just a quick little, I'm going to darken some of these here. Again, it's all initial glazing, shaded base coat. I'm not worried about any of this. I can paint back over things, and it's not a big deal. And I know it gets a little messy looking, but you can't sort of probe your way through a color scheme by just little dribs and drabs. You know, only doing the shield. You can't figure out the whole overall color scheme. You have to, well, as much as possible, work on the whole thing at once. Here, let's get some more darks here on the horse's basically helmet right there. Gonna leave. No, I'm gonna go touch more maggot white into the wildwood here. You can see it's almost making kind of a brownish gray. And now if we go Reaper clear and liner equivalent, that would be like taking your brown liner and mixing that with the maiden flesh. Doing that with, say, the ProAcryls, the transparent, that would be a little more complicated. It would probably be taking maybe the brown and the black and then mixing that with the maggot white. Something along those lines, I think, would do it. Let's get some of the paint out of there. But as you can see, it's translucent enough. It leaves an impression behind. It's definitely, you can see that it's lighter, even there on that, on the lance. But still transparent enough to let what's underneath show through. And let's just, last thing here, play with that cloak a little bit. So here's your Leviathan blue. But I'm going to need a touch of my wildwood over here. And this will be our last little thing here for our, like I said, initial glazes, shaded base coats. That's got a little more blue to it now. And then in our next stage, we can start to work some middle tones in that. I think what I will do is just throw a bit of lighter red into those areas that we've realized were supposed to be red in the first place. Alright, we're good with that. Here's the red. So a little bit of that gore grunt in there, because otherwise don't want it to turn pink on me here. But you can see now we're making basically a contrast paint. We're making it more of an opaque so that the actual cover over here, just like we do with the Reaper clears. And I'm going to get a bit more of this in there. Yeah. And see how that it covers and not covers. That was kind of my goal right there. So strange. It's kind of a weird thing there, but it's in the picture. It's in the picture, so we'll try and incorporate that. Now, I just mixed a little bit of the gore grunta in with that. I'm going to throw a few areas of this warmer tone in there. And a few areas like here on the fur. Because we had a lot of that green. That cools it down for sure. So even throw a little bit of the red onto the horse's tail. Not quite sure what to do with the straps yet. That's another thing we'll just have to figure out later, and then we're gonna put the wooden shaft on the lance and call that a day. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll let some of this have a chance to dry, but you can see we're getting a fairly decent start there. So yeah, we'll let this dry. I don't think I really need much of anything out on the palette yet, so we'll let this dry. We're going to play with these greens here, go more into those midtones, and we'll do that next. Like I said, I was going to start off with a little bit of the green here, so let's make some of that lighter. I think we've had an opportunity to let that dry, and we got our semi-translucent mix of mid-tone there, like so. There we go. I just have to keep this pretty darn muted, but I'm going to start to see, I'm already starting to think of reflecting that onto surfaces like that helmet. It really is important, even at this very early stage, to be thinking about that. I mean, really, that is at the core of the whole non-metallic metal stuff, is that the miniature or the color scheme kind of will determine for you what you need to do. It'll tell you, okay, yeah, put some more green over here, or no, put sky blue over here. The miniature itself will let you know. I hope that just sort of thinking that and having that phrase in your head makes the whole thing just less daunting. Because, well, I think we all put up barriers for success, and we just tell ourselves, well, we can't do that. Because if you say you can't do that, that's generally going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's going to happen. You can go a little touch lighter now. And because we're starting to work on smaller areas and incorporate more of our opaque colors in there, what's interesting is it doesn't dry as fast, and that's something we've talked about on other occasions. I used to use, oh gosh, what was it, Flow Improver? I think Reaper makes it, and Vallejo certainly makes that. And I use that all the time. If you've seen the old painting pyramid videos, you've seen me using that Flow Improver. But then you also saw me using things like the GW washes and the secret weapon washes, and as much as anything else, the whole idea behind those was to actually incorporate that drying retarder, but without having an actual drying retarder. It just by virtue of the type of color that I am adding, it acts like a drying retarder, but not a lot. Obviously, we don't need a super amount of working time here. It would be nifty if this were oils, and it would have been really fun to do some oils on these guys, but to me, I think you'll benefit from this too. And I was tempted to do the what were they? The ProAcryl Transparent paint and use them like this, but I've got tons of other things, and we can do that on those. Here, let's incorporate a little bit of that green into here again. See, even on the side of that shield there, we can just keep working a little bit more of this maggot white in there, a little bit more, a little bit more. Now I realize that's all super shiny right there. Speaking of oils, that is the weird thing about the contrast paint. Well, it's because they're staying wetter longer too. It's another reason why there's that kind of a shine that you see on the camera there. I think in some of my folds on this here, I might get into some wildwood, something that's not necessarily just a deep green in the folds. But the nice thing is, even though this is a lighter color, it's still translucent. We're not just taking only lighter colors and working those up. And the traditional layers, we're doing something a little bit different here. Now, let's see. That can't be too light because, and this is the other thing I gotta start thinking about, well, like there too. This should be, for all intents and purposes, casting a shadow onto the horse, onto the figure. Now, maybe not. Maybe the sun's from that side, but then, well, this side would be in shadow, and that would make less sense. Maybe it's not a big deal when it's something like this, more of a one-off type thing or whatever, or if it's part of an army. But if it's maybe a diorama or something like that, now you've got to really make sure you're integrating all of your light sources. And that's why I started to do things like that, at least those small little vignettes. The dark sword thing with the owlbear family, and the Galadriel with the water fountain thing, and eventually that's going to lead to more diorama type things that may be more miniatures in them, or at least larger scale figures with more stuff around them too, more of a scene. And then that scene has to be lit. Now I won't go too much more with mixing the maggot white into this green mix, because I've got to do the blanket on the horse at this point. Like I said, I'm not worried about even smoothness or anything like that. I just want to stuff like that. See, a little bit of the lighter green there. It's just telling me, look, it's right here. It's got to reflect down there, right? I mean, it's sitting right next to that metal. It has to be that. It can't just be. And I've seen it so often. Well, I've seen it with metallic paint too. It's not just the non-metallic. So when I go to do more of the true metallic things, I want to make sure that we emphasize that too. Now I'm going to go back to the Achillean green over here. Make this also a bit lighter. But you can see it's got a little more opacity to it. We've added more and more of stuff like the maggot white in there. There may come a point where I have to maybe go back in with a touch of Achillean green to bring back some of the saturation. I don't want to lose too much of that. I can see it is, I don't want to say it gets more dull, but it just gets less saturated. It's not quite as intense. The Achillean green is just one of those. All the contrast paints are pretty intense out of the jar, but Achillean green is really, I mean, that's got a lot of oomph to it. Lighten these up, and now I'm just gonna go bam right into some maggot white here. Now let's really make an impression on this bleed, like that. Tip of the lance, and yes, I said a lance. This shield has this curvature to it, and I really want to make sure that I get that curvature working all the way down. And all of these things that look like I'm just taking, well, another layer or another color of paint and it's lighter. No, that's me. All I'm doing is just mixing. See here, I'm even taking some of that Achillean green and just throwing it over here. So it's not, these things start to have some kind of common color to them. I'm even trying to find a little bit of sky blue color in there. Here, maybe this is as far as I will go with this for right now. Okay. I'm just gonna throw this for here for right now. Those will probably be also more of a brass type of color, I suppose. And I'm going to hopefully you can see what we're doing. And see, I've just got a little bit of that same bluish color, just letting it creep into, letting that work its way into the mix here. Very gently. Not even really going to be all that noticeable that blue is there, like always. Okay, I'm going to get this side too here. This is where I can sneak in a little bit of, see how neat that is to have that green on the other side there. And I think I'll make that maybe not brass or bronze or whatever. We'll have that be more of a just a metal type color. Okay. I think we are good to go there. Now we're going to go into our violet and blue over here. Ever so, but as the hint of that, a hint of my maggot white in there. And just, like I said, this, from what I can gather as I looked at this thing, these are the this is the sort of coloration that I saw. And this is another reason why I was thinking of having the shyish purple out. I don't know if I'm actually going to need that, because I keep forgetting sometimes that Leviathan blue has much more purple in it than something like a blue liner. A blue liner is more of a Prussian blue. It's, for lack of a better term, it's got more green in it. Whereas something like the Leviathan blue has more red in it. It's another reason why I sort of chose that for the blankets here like this. And I know this has some more of a better name than the horse blanket, but I can never remember. I always forget every single time. See, some of the initial glaze is still wet there, and I'm going to incorporate that. This by default starts to separate from the horse, but now we're going to incorporate some of this into his cloak. It's not necessarily for darkening things down, but for trying to get more cohesion with some things here. Yeah, I'll just take some of that away now. But I really do have to tread lightly as I add some of these lighter things here. Because now what's interesting is that as I work with the all those different snakebite leather mixes and such, then what looks kind of on the lighter side here, it's not going to look light at all. It's going to look kind of dark. It's always, I got to keep that in my thought process there. Is that, yeah, it looks dark now. Another reason why context is kind of important in everything in life. And you can see in just your regular life when you don't have the full context of things and you hear something, or well, especially those things you hear about online, because everything on the internet is true, of course. And something might seem really horrible or really amazing or whatever out of context. One more go around with this, and then we will move on to our brass slash bronze. Say that 10 times fast. Well, not me, because I certainly can't do that. But as I see this start to develop here, I'm pretty happy with this. It's from what I saw in the pictures. This is kind of what came to mind. And also, this has to be done 7 more times. Another reason why we're trying to keep the colors just sort of as a whole relatively simple, easy to remember, easy to replicate. Because if you do that, you kind of go wild and have just a whole bunch of layer after layer and 5 different colors or a blue to go 1 shade lighter or whatever. Well, that will be more of a challenge than me saying, oh, okay, so I just have to keep adding more maggot white to Leviathan blue until I get what all the other ones look like. That's something that can be replicated. Remember, there could come a time where I have to add another unit of these guys, and this way, just by virtue of knowing what the color was, instead of the name on the jar, just knowing what it was in an actuality. It's like a dark blue that's got a little bit of purple in it. I think this will be the last, at least for now, this will be the last layer of this. That's it. We're still only, oh, 40 some odd minutes into this. Not even an hour yet. This big old mounted rider here. So, here, let's get rid of some of that. Alrighty. And I'm going to clean out the brush. I'm going to take some of this. Yeah, I'm just going to go right into that. Start to lighten this up. Like I said, my camera might be in a weird spot here. If the angle looks different or whatever, it's because only a few hours ago, a matter of a few hours ago, I thought I was going to have to tear down the entire camera setup and put up a whole new camera. And that's just for me too. I wanted to, yes, I needed it. I wanted to do a challenging thing here, but not too much of a challenge because the evening has been a challenge, without a doubt. You can see we start to incorporate a little bit lighter here. Now, what I've also got is some of those creature caster monument type colors with the ivory, and especially the bright titanium. That's to have that once it comes to a point where we don't need translucency, where we need opacity. Well, that's where the ProAcryls are really your friend. That's where we take advantage of what they do well. I'm starting to see a little bit more into the mind of the person that did that color scheme there in a way, because now I start to see what those blues and greens do. It's just weird that the color of that cloak is pretty much what I've seen some of the armor of these guys painted in, especially on the, what would you call it, the concept art, the box art, whatever. So I had really built in my head a mental picture of what that should kind of look like, how I was going to do it, and then it turned out it was only ever going to be a commission thing, and I was pretty much never going to use it myself. And that's why the workbench sessions just tend to cover these type of things. Alright. Now I will at a certain point maybe bring in some type of a yellow. Probably just a clear yellow. If I do, though, well, there has to be a reason to. Why would I be bringing that in? I don't know, maybe because this gets almost a little bit too pink. It doesn't have quite enough zip to it. A few of those areas, especially on things like the helmet and the helmet over here, where I might need something to have just a little bit of a sparkle to it. Let's get a little light over here, but can't be too much because in some ways it almost should be in shadow because of where the shield is in relationship to it. Okay, so I will, for the heck of it, I'm going to just put, because remember I can make this a lemon yellow. It doesn't have to be a warm yellow. Doesn't have to be. Looks like my palette's still in the right spot. Yeah, we'll just throw a little bit of our yellow in here. And I'm just, it does make it lighter, yes. But now just like I'm trying to get more than only the green incorporated into that his cloak and blue on the horse blanket, which I'll just keep calling it that for now. And what have we not ventured into? We have not ventured into anything that is white or anything along those lines. Essentially the brightest color we've used even on our metals, just an off-white. But I think you can see how these start to perk up a little bit now. Starting to perk up, and as without the use of that white. Now we'll probably have that out on the palette for the next segment, I would say, because maybe it may or may not be final details. I don't know. And I'm not even going to get into the snow on this because we've got tons of videos with snow on them. And it'll just be the usual secret weapon, crushed glass. This little the mental gymnastics of this, that was really the thing I wanted you to see. Plus it's a different figure for me in that I don't usually have these clearly defined color sections like that. I don't want to say heraldry, but I suppose it's the closest thing to it. That is not usually what you see me do. I do have, and this was for a Bretonnian army I was going to do, I've got some, oh gosh, I wish I could remember the name of the company. They do a lot of historical things. They're essentially, well, they're supposed to be Templars, but I thought, well, on those blankets, because of the way they are, they're wide open. They have not like this where there's stuff actually sort of embedded in the shield or whatever. So I thought those could be something in the future, or we do those really elaborately painted horse blankets, which again, still we'll just have to refer to them as that. I'm gonna get some of that over here, I think. Let's get some on this side of his helmet now. Oh, and then there's these crazy, whatever this is here. Well, I'm going to get his chainmail a touch there, a touch over here. But that is in shadow. I got to remember that. Must keep that in mind. So I'm going to add a little bit of the maggot white. And the idea is, see, at this point now, the yellow, the whole point of that is to keep that from becoming just too pink, too much of a, well, flesh tone color. Trying to see, I can see a little bit of that sparkle start to work its way into our metals here. Still with no white in this yet. And I am starting to like the titanium white. I know I love the bright ivory. That is just, it's got some nice warmth to it. And I think actually at the end of this segment here, I'm going to maybe make the reference picture bigger. And because now I think we're starting to enter into the realm of what that reference picture looks like. But this is the difference now. The reference picture is not going to have stuff like this. Because that's just I believe that's just metallic paints there. There was no effort to carry stuff like the green and reflect that into the armor. Now, for those of you that do the army painting thing, you know, with the Necron series, that was where we tried to do more with the metallics. Obviously, do the true metallic thing, where yes, we were using metallic paint, but it was still reflecting its environment around it. And there will definitely be more exercises in that. They might even be, some might be Lord of the Rings figures that I've got now more of the more Sigmar figs. And I was actually thinking of, even with the Ossiarchs, maybe doing a little bit of like what I did with the Necrons there. Using maybe the metal medium. Now that I've got, actually I have some from Creature Caster. And I think that'll be fun to do an entire just an episode on that. Or, well, the whole series based on that. Yeah, see what that, see that little bit of blue in there does for me now? I want to do the same in here. No, not that. No, that's just going to be dead. So I got to go back to my Leviathan here, and it's going to make myself a bit of a purple here. And just see it, look at it right there. Is it even? I think it's perceptible. I think you can see it. Just like a hint of purple there. Why? Because, well, there's some of that here on these cloaks. No, I don't like that. Did something there. I thought that would be neat, and wasn't as neat as I thought it was going to be. So I changed it, and now I'm going to incorporate some of this purple into the robe here, or his cloak, whatever it is. That's so funny. It looks so light there, but it's actually very dark. And heck, I'm even gonna maybe put a little bit of that here into my reds. See here, look at what we're doing on the shield right there. We're even thinking here, reflected light. It's a little subtle thing. It is, again, it's not going to be, you won't find it on those reference pictures. It's not there. But we need to get that in. This is the other reason why I wanted the clear yellow, is so that this could be made lighter, but not pink. And the nice thing is that the clear yellow is going to make that a little bit lighter, but still give me that translucency that really helps move things along. I need some more of that clear yellow out here. There we go. Mix that right in. Where are we at here? You can see I'm using a little bit of almost like a stippling effect here. Couple of reasons for that. First of all, if I don't do that, it's because you've got such of a wet mix here. The paint will just pull away. See, it gets a little bit brighter now. Let's hit our red that's over there. But all the while thinking, yeah, I'm going to use this translucency in my favorite. People are always fighting that. So often I see people fighting the translucency, which does make the Creature Caster colors and their popularity on the ironic side, because, well, those transparents are kind of the opposite of what they're the opposite of what the regular creature caster colors are, which are super opaque. Now I may just need to let this sit a bit, but right over here, remember what's next to it dictates, right? So I've got to have some red here reflecting. If that's metal, there's going to be that red next to it. I've got to reflect it there. Crazy as that sounds, that had to happen there for that to be essentially believable as metal. So what I can do now is I'm just going to let some of these colors have a little chance to dry and settle in. Now we'll throw some of the bright ivory or the white. I think I'm tempted to just go with the bright ivory. You won't be able to really see the difference between these, but this one has a little more yellow to it. We'll go with that. That's what we're going to use, bright ivory. Just made the decision right there. Just made that choice. Okay. A little bit lighter with my red here. And I'm even gonna see just a little tiny bit there around that rivet or whatever that is. Just a small little amount, just enough to say, yeah, I know there's some red there. We're gonna reflect that. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll put that white out on the palette. We got some things like this fur in here. Got to decide what's going to happen. More details, lighter highlights, that sort of thing. Then we'll be right back with that. I've added that white to the palette, and a couple of things that I'm doing now. This is not with that white. This is still with stuff like the maggot flesh used to lighten things. Just trying to figure out, okay, things like these straps here, the horse, how much lighter can I go with this? To make it, see, it's already, yeah, there's enough of a difference now, I think, between the cloak and the horse, although I am going to incorporate a little bit of thinking reflected light, because there's going to be snow on the ground, right? So I'm trying to get some of that going here too. Even on the blanket, see, here on the inner portion. Maybe a little bit in this fold as we get over here by the tail. And I'm even letting some of that gore grunt to fur. That's starting to mix in. That gives it, I don't want to say a reddish tint, but a little less of the brownish gray type color that I was telling you about earlier. I'm gonna go a little bit further with this here. Like I said, even the horse, he needs to have some different colors in his fur too. And who knows, there may have to be more adjustments to this. Maybe the person says, well, yeah, I want that to be more black. They say even the hints of blue and other things that we put in this cloak, well, that's too much. There's got to be less of it. It has to just be more black, which means, well, kind of a deader color. Not necessarily darker, but just losing more of that blue, that little bluish tint that we gave it. And let's get a little bit of that into this fur onto this strap here. Maybe even on the underside of his foot. Heck, maybe even here on the spear shaft, the underside of the spear tip. Not spear, lance. It's been a long, long day here. So you'll just have to pardon those slip-ups. Alright, I am going to... Let's see if we can't play around with some of our really light colors. So it's going to be some of that bright ivory. Going to mix it with the yellow there, essentially making a lemon yellow. Let's get ourselves a few bright, shiny highlights in here. Now on these scales here, let's try and get these. It's almost like I'm doing a larger version of some of the Easterling scale mail. Gotta get the elbow here, and like I said, that creature caster slash slow fuse slash monument. That paint's gonna be, look at that, really just pops in that highlight. Just dives right in. Now we've got these, it's got a curved etch shapes in the armor there. Just trying to find these little bits of, a little bit of zest, a little pizzazz here. Some of these metals. If you do it in a, what's the right word? Just one continuous brush stroke. Well, that's where it's going to run into some problems, because the metal, especially if it's reflecting all these colors and reflecting the light needs to essentially be broken up. And that's what we're trying to do here, is break up some of this light. And I gotta resist the urge to start highlighting all that fur, because it's my natural tendency to want to do that. But I don't think that should happen. Now on the, I guess the side benefit of that fur being on the darker side is that all of my armor just looks that much lighter. It provides a nice little value contrast to it. Let's get Mr. Sword right here. Let's get this stuff on his elbow here. Like I said, but I'm trying to break up that shape a little bit. Somehow break it up. I'll get my edge along here. Do a dash on some of the rivets too. Even along this little crazy ridgeline thing here, we're gonna try and make sure that the whatever highlight we put here is also has a few breaks to it. And there. It doesn't take very long. We're just working our way around. Up to the horse's face here. These helmet things, it was the same thing for the Easterlings. Every time I run into these type of armor on horses, it's always usually trickier than armor on people. It just kind of works out that way. Just the shape is so unusual, not something you're used to. Now I gotta remember other side here. And I'm going to have to get in here with some grays and some other things. Remember that sort of purplish color we were starting to incorporate here? We're going to need a little bit more of that too. I see we're missing a few lights on this side now. And on his shoulders. Hopefully you can see that. Certainly on his visor here. And then we've got the crazy fish symbol there, and we're going to do a little reflected light there, and then we'll try and get his chainmail here. Which they sort of did to look like a bit of a web, I guess. Now we're going to, little snake bite leather here, we're going to backtrack a bit. Going to mix the white in with that. Where are we at? I'll make sure we're on screen for you. There we go. That's a little bit on the warmer side. Because we've done a lot of stuff with the coolers. Now we're going back in here. As we do, we like to just work back and forth sometimes. And this is where I need to get some green. So we're going to take this. This is the green that we were using on the robe, and now it's going to be sort of a lighter reflected color, but see, it goes down in there. It can't just all be a shadow in there. That would be more of a cloth type of a thing. Whereas, or say wood or whatever, but if it's metal, we definitely want to have something reflecting in there, or just not just, it can't just go dark down into that. It makes, there's the logic in your head says, well, no, that should just be dark. But if you want it to be metal, you've got to have that be reflecting in some way. We're going to do this here too. And over here. Go back to my much brighter tone there. Now, I'm just going to real quickly here try and do something with the eyes on the horse. Just have him looking more straight ahead there. I'm going to try and get a couple. There we go. See, just a few dark bits. See, there's a little bit there, and there's a little bit there, and then that's it. Now we need to go back into this lighter stuff over here. See how this gets broken up. Gonna go back into my snakebite leather mix here. See how translucent that is? It's very much like what we were using a while ago. See, reflected light there. Gonna go back into this to crest of the helmet. Carry that down. I see we didn't do these like we did on the other shoulder. We'll do them now. Let's see if I can't. Yeah, over the eye there, just to go back into my yellow there. Let's see, let's get our, yeah, I need to give this a, make it look more turned. Trying to add a little bit of light right here. Thinking of all the places where light could possibly reflect. I'm actually going to turn down the brightness a touch because we are adding such. There we go. Because some of these are so intense. See, now we can have a little bit of a edge on the helmet there. I'm just going to work in that to the saddle. That's that crazy fish thing that he's got on his chest there. Gonna go back into some, that's the Achillean green there. And I'm gonna see what I can do here for some highlights on this cloak. And you notice I just kind of took the color that I was already using to lighten up the helmet and such. It's that we're just trying to kind of daisy chain these colors together here. And it's all very translucent, so it's not going to overpower things. We won't necessarily lose the darkness of the robes. I'm going to reinforce the greenish colors on that side of the scales there. Same thing here. And here we've got a lot of dark, but we have no reflected light, so that's what I'm going to try and incorporate there. Really was nothing in the way of, say, some freehand designs as I add a little bit of actual green there, because I can't just keep making the bridle and such more of a reddish color. That's not going to do anything. That is not going to be helpful. Let's get his lance. Like so. The top of it, and then we will do the other ridge line here. Oh, I'm going to go back to the Achillean green. We're going to take the white and Achillean green. See if I can't make kind of a sky blue color here. Incorporate that. And the ground, if it's going to have snow on it, well, then I have to almost reflect a tiny bit of practically the sky color to it. Now I'm going to take that same lighter tone now, and we'll work on this piece. Don't want to outline it or anything like that. And so as I'm trying to give it a little bit of, almost like it has folds. But I'm also going to incorporate a little bit of that into my yellows. But see, now we're going to, see, it almost gives it a bit of a metallic look to it there, even though there's no metal paint. Once again, incorporate a little bit of the blue into that brassy bronze color. Even here on that, on the greave there. That's what I'll do to highlight that fur just a touch. Can't just have nothing there. I think that blue is innocuous enough. Stirrups. And just a hint of that. Reds, I'm going to mess with those in just a second here. I want to make sure I've got these matching the other side. Okay, now to our reds. And I'm tempted to just grab the clear red, but let's see if we can't go with what we've been using here. So again, there's your clear yellow mixed with the contrast red that we were using. And this is that sort of interesting refinement stage where you have to figure out, okay, this is an army painting thing. I got 8 of these to do. Just how much do I go into adding? Okay, some kind of interesting little secondary color here into my reds. So do I try and incorporate some of that green or Achillean in there, or is that just too much? Is that going to be diminishing returns? There's, at least for now, there is no freehand that's supposed to go on these, which is really weird because I'm just used to stuff like this, especially after some of the recent cav and even what I want to do with the Dull Amaranth Knights. It's just really weird to have all these big old surfaces and yet not have any freehand on them. So I'm going to incorporate just a little bit of the red into there. Maybe even onto that. So as you can see, the clear yellow, it will lighten that, but it's not going to, see, it doesn't turn it pink either, or chalky. Those are the things that can happen. And I realize it's an older video. Now I think I've got some of the Dark Sword videos that are more color centric. Yeah, there's definitely a Dark Sword video that's all about painting reds. I think there's a Dark Sword video about blues, maybe even one about greens too. In addition to the old original painting pyramid ones. Now obviously I paint differently than I used to. Heck, I paint differently now than I did this morning. I don't paint the same way because I was working with a new oil paint, and just a couple days ago I was filming this thing with the ProAcryl Transparent paints, and there was things I discovered in that I will be incorporating. So I think for you too, hopefully you will just keep on learning and growing with each and every miniature that you do. Because, like I say, if you're not, you will eventually just get bored. It will not be that much fun anymore. And I know that's sort of a dire prediction there, but from a person who has seen it happen very, 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 very often. Well, let's see if I can't. Yeah, I'm gonna work a little bit of. So I'm just sort of stippling that. It's almost like it's not just flat metal. Doing that intentionally. Yeah, I think that's pretty fun. You can see I've really added more and more of that clear yellow to it. Here, I'm going to move this over a little bit. I'm looking at the blue that I have from my light there, so I'm going to move this over a bit. Okay, so what I'll do is one more last segment here. It's really more of just a final thoughts kind of thing. Maybe we just try and tie up a few loose ends. And like I said, I'm not going to be doing the snow here because, well, I just want to double, quadruple check that there's supposed to be the snow there. Ah, there's, see, I forgot to put some red over here. Forgot to reflect that. That's better. I was messing around over here and then I went and said, oh, okay. Forgot something over there. Yeah, then just threw that little bit of red into his... Maybe it doesn't even necessarily make sense there, but it sure does give it a little extra life. Almost there. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just kind of have a little... as I tap away at some final little things here, sort of go over what it was that we tried to accomplish in this one here. Yeah, we'll work on the lance and that sort of thing. Some of the metals there. Maybe even some final little highlights on the horse. See if we can find some in there too. So we'll be right back with that. Let's see what kind of final little things we can work in here. I'm going to take some of this white here again. That's some of my original colors that I used on the horse. Let's see if I can't go just a touch lighter in a few places here. Like there on the nostril, maybe under the eyes here, maybe even on the ears. I think a few places on the mane probably should have something there. And I could even do is, if this horse is big enough, I could actually paint fur texture on him, but I don't think I'm going to actually do that. Certainly on this tail here, I gotta do something with this. Either have to go in with something that's darker or something that's lighter, but we're gonna go in with something that's lighter. Gotta get some kind of texture on here that's more than just what's sculpted in there. Because with miniatures, we sort of have to help those along. Yes, they've been sculpted and everything else, but we have to sculpt with paint a little bit. I'm going to try and hit the mane on this side now. I'm not looking to highlight the edges here. I'm almost looking at it being lighter at the base of the mane, where the mane meets the neck. And then trying to do a little bit of matching to the fur color there on the neck to what I was just doing on the mane. Do a little bit of that on his face. Trying to get a little more interesting stuff going on with the lance. Maybe tone down that red a bit, just make it a little more towards the gray. We're going to do some of that right in here. I can still use my finger as well. Here I'm going to get these brush strokes going more in the way that makes sense. So there's that whole directional brush strokes. Boy, it's been a while since we really talked about that intensely during a video, so I apologize. Not that we haven't had stuff that involved fur and other things like that for a while necessarily, so maybe that's probably why we got away from that particular conversation. A little bit more, and a few areas, not every single hair highlighted to within an inch of its life. We're also going to use some of this to lighten parts of the glove here. And now I am going to take, believe it or not, this is going to be crazy sounding here, but we're taking some of the yellow, mixing it with some of that green. I'm even going to put a touch of that on this lance. So see, it's still reddish over here, but on the end of it there, it's green. But it's not going to look like green because we didn't do green everywhere. And then, I mean, we can even do something like this here. So we've got green, and then, see if we can incorporate a little bit of the red there. Let's go even more light there. It's a fun thing. I don't remember exactly when I started doing things like that, but I knew kind of instantly I liked it. It's, well, because wood to me has lots of grays and greens. It is really not that pristine wood color. I can't do the hand quotes for that. Let's see, I'm going to even get some of that into my lance tip there. Now remember, as I keep incorporating this bright ivory in there, that is going to be opaque. So gotta consider that. And I'm even going to throw some of that here. See that a little. Now we're starting to maybe set back some parts of the horse blanket in favor of maybe the cloak. Let's do this edge too. And here. And don't be afraid to just take your finger to wipe that away. Yeah, let's do some. Let's carry this color even out to here. Might even go a bit right in here with this. Get that other nostril there. I think I just have to make the mouth. Yeah. What we're going to do is take Leviathan blue here. Crazy as it sounds. Sometimes you can make their muzzles or their noses almost a little bit more of a pinkish color. Here I'll give it almost like it's a hint of a bluish gray, maybe, I don't know. And then I've still got some of the color that I was using for the mane and his tail. Interspersing a few little, almost like they are indications of actual fur. And then I'm gonna go the other way here. We're gonna take some dark, Leviathan in blue and wildwood here. I'm gonna get some separation in a few places. Yeah, I'm gonna darken that down. Now here on his helmet, that might need something that's a little bit brighter. I'm gonna go with my yellow here. That's I almost called it lemon yellow. Been talking about it so much. There we go. Now I hope this gives you a little encouragement too, and that when a color scheme just it escapes you, or it's just hard to nail it down. You have a vision in your mind maybe of what you want it to be, but you're having a tough time just transferring it to the figure, because you can have all the greatest ideas you want in your head, and you can look at reference pictures too, like we were doing here. Yeah, you can do that. But then there's still the actually not just getting it to the figure, but making it to where you can do that many times in a reasonable amount of time, which is what we had to do here. So I apologize if there's anything weird camera-wise or where I was holding this. There was quite the not fun. I was in full emergency mode there, which is why I'm doing this one here instead of the army painting video that I was originally going to do, because some of that stuff got set to the side as I tried to do some emergency things on here. Now, if you can leave a like on this, that's much appreciated, because YouTube really does notice that. And it does help with the channel, which the channel can't just be separate from the Patreon page. It's one and the same, because a lot of the things that I use for the Patreon page, you need those likes and subscription, all that kind of stuff. Here, we're gonna go back into some of that, block that, and we're gonna find over here some maybe reflected lights. I'm just gonna scumbling that in there very lightly, very gently, very gentle. Yeah, let's get a little more down here. It's almost like it's a cooler version of the red there. Okay. Yep, I'll get you some pictures in the credits there, but we'll just call this done. What I will be doing is taking this right here, because you've seen me use this before in videos, right? The Army Painter anti-shine. And what that does, it cuts down a little bit on some of the glossy things there. So thanks again, everybody. I will catch you on the next video. Probably another army painting one. And as always, thanks for your support.